Hello! Can you hear me now? Am I in focus? Am I good now? Am I good now? How about now? Hey, you don't see anything? Nothing to see here. What this? We good? Whatever. Alright, YouTube, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Story J. Got your attention yet? And I come from New Orleans, Louisiana, home of gumbo, Mardi Gras, and exemptable taxation on seafood. But in 2004, I decided to come here to LA, where I could meet more artists and people who like cartoons and movies like me. Since then, I've worked at schools all across the valley, from school to 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 school, teaching kids to draw and make up stories and be all around decent people. Not too much to ask, right? So by 2013, I was working at a summer camp where I did, lo and behold, story time. And since then, I've been making up stories and stretching the imagination with games like Story Court and Shrunk History every summer since. And here we are now, for this summer. At home, cooped up, bored, 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 like real bored. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. We don't necessarily have to be at camp to be at story time. Like, I don't have to be in New Orleans just to have a beignet. I mean, I can make my own beignets. Disneyland ain't got nothing on me with my beignet. But just like I can make beignets at home, we can do story time at home. So I'm here to present to you for the first time on YouTube, story time. I know we're working on a better title, but I thought we'd start off with, of all things, a story. Then a minute. You know? Gotta get loose. This one's an oldie. It's actually the first story I ever did when I was in... Yeah, already. Due to YouTube restrictions and standards and practices, it would be in your best interest if you would seek permission from said institution before naming said institution. Yeah, you know what? That's totally fair. Probably ask. Moving on. So today I thought I'd start off with what was my first story I ever did in Storytime. Has a little girl in it, but she goes into this house with these three bears and hilarity ensues. And then she just bounces and then she leaves. Never really got the whole thing behind Goldilocks and the three bears. I mean, no real closure to that story, you know? Definitely not for the three bears. So let's not do Goldilocks and the three bears, because that wasn't my first story in Storytime. My first story involved kind of a similar plot, but as you will see I like to do, and as my former campers know I like to do, I like to take a little twist on stories. Take something from pop culture now and mix it into something that we had of a fairy story back then. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please allow me to tell you the story of Thordylocks and the Three Ice Trolls. Once upon a time in a land of ice, there was a little ice cottage. This ice cottage, to be precise. And in that little ice cottage lived a family of trolls. There was, of course, a mama troll, a papa troll, and, of course, a baby troll. And they lived very happily in their little ice cottage for many years. And on this particular day, Mama Troll had so much love for her family that she decided to make them all breakfast. And what a better breakfast could you imagine, or what a more nutritious breakfast can you imagine than, of course, a classic bowl of porridge. Trademark for these kind of stories. And they were very happy with their 3 bowls of porridge, but as you can see by the wavy lines, they were indeed too hot. And this is the 21st century. Nobody would go out to the woods to have a little walk. But where would they go at that time of morning, of course, but to the mall, where they all joined their fellow mall walkers, be they young or old. Not everybody's a morning person. And so the family of trolls weren't gone very long when a curious little boy happened to come along the road. This curious little boy right here. And his name was Thordylocks. Now, Thordylocks, as I said in the description, was a very inquisitive and curious little boy. And on this day, he wanted to go into the troll's house. Now, audience, I ask you, Should Thornylocks go into that house? Right, no. But do you think for the sake of plot advancement that he went in anyway? Yeah, he went in anyway. And in he went, where he found 3 bowls of porridge. And the first bowl of porridge he came across was the biggest bowl, and that was, of course, Papa Troll's bowl of porridge. Now, Papas, in the food category, tend to like salty things. What are some salty foods? Potato chips are a very salty food. French fries are a very salty food. But do you think that porridge tasted like pretzels? No. Indeed it did not, and it did indeed taste just like sardines. I know, you indeed. Mistake. And when Thornylocks tasted that sardine-flavored bowl of porridge, his face kind of went like that. So he threw that bowl out and went to the next bowl, and that was Mama Troll's favorite bowl of porridge. Now, Mama Trolls tend to like healthier things. Now, what are some healthy things to eat? Carrots are a very healthy snack. Fruits and vegetables, also a very healthy snack. And walnuts, also a very healthy snack. But do you think that it tasted like walnuts or fruits or vegetables or any of those things? Indeed it did not. And it tasted like the healthiest thing that any kid could imagine, and that would be liver and onions. Ugh. And when Thornylocks looked at that and tasted that bowl of porridge that was flavored like liver and onions, his face kind of went off like that. So he threw that bowl of porridge out, and he went on to the next bowl of porridge, which was Baby Troll's favorite bowl of porridge. Now, babies tend to like sweet things. Let's see, there's candy, there's cookies, there's cupcakes. Now, do you think that it tasted like cupcakes or candy or cookies or any of that? In this particular bowl of porridge was flavored just like a bowl of ice cream. And when he tasted that ice cream flavored bowl of porridge, his face was a very happy, smiley face. And he was so happy he could do a little happy dance while he ate his bowl of ice cream flavored bowl of porridge. When he was all done, it was emptied and that bowl was clean. And by that time, he made it to their room of their favorite things and their favorite chairs. And he came first to Papa Troll's favorite chair. Now, do you think Thornylocks should sit in Papa Troll's favorite chair? No, but do you think he's going to do it anyway? Yeah, he's going to do it anyway. And so he did. And when he sat down on that icy, cold seat, when his little bottom touched that very cold seat, his face was not liking it. So, a no-go on the icy chair. So the next chair he came across was Mama Troll's favorite chair. And her troll chair was very ergonomic, very good for the back. A beanbag chair, actually. Very relaxing. So, audience, do you think Thornylocks should sit in Mama Troll's favorite chair? But do you think he's going to do it anyway? Yeah, he's going to do it anyway. And sit in it he did, so when he felt that squishiness on his bottom, he was not a happy camper, which made him also a very uncomfortable camper. Yeah. So he lifted himself out of that beanbag chair and made his way to the next chair, and that was, of course, Baby Troll's favorite chair. Now look at this chair, streamlined to perfection. Now should Thornylocks sit in Baby Troll's chair? Of course not. But do you think he's going to do it anyway? Yeah, he's going to do it anyway. But he didn't even make it to 2 steps toward that chair, because that chair was made by an outside company, a third-party company. And when he took 1 step toward that chair came down like a ton of bricks. But Thornylocks didn't really care about it at that point. But Thornylocks, being somewhat inconsiderate and a little bit insensitive, went on to the next room, didn't even try and fix what was broken. And when he went on to the next room, he found the room of their favorite things. Now, Papa Trolls love shiny things. Could be a trophy. It could also be a world's greatest dad mug. But no, it wasn't any of those things, dear audience. But it was indeed a 2020 Lamborghini, equipped with 631 horsepower, V10 engines, and a touchscreen console. Do you think Thordylocks wanted to get into that car? Do you think Thordylocks got the keys for that car? And when he couldn't, he was not having it, and he was upset. So he went on to the next favorite thing, and that would be Mama's favorite thing. Now, Mama trolls love to relax. Sometimes they like to read, sometimes they like to relax with a nice little binge watch, or they could have all that binge watch and read on their fancy, schmancy tablet computer. Now, indeed, it was a wondrous thing, but do you think Thordylocks should play with that tablet computer? Of course, he didn't want to, but do you think he had the Wi-Fi password to go into said tablet computer? Nope, he didn't, and so when he couldn't, once again, not a happy camper. So he went on to the next favorite thing, and that was Baby Troll's favorite thing. Now, baby trolls love baby toys, like baby rattlers, or baby pacifiers, or baby sharks. But this baby was a thinking baby, and this baby loved smart puzzle toys. Now, do you think Thordylocks wanted to play with that baby toy? No, sir, he did not. When he saw that baby toy, he was completely over it. However, there was something behind the toy chest that caught Thordylocks' attention, and that was the one, the only, Mjolnir, the choice hammer for Norse gods. And for this particular little Norse god, he was in love. He found his hammer, and he was so happy and excited! But who should come along back to their own house? Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it was the family of trolls. And when Thordylocks saw that the trolls had returned, he realized he was in some serious, serious trouble. So when the ice trolls discovered that they had a stranger in their house who had sat in all their chairs, eaten all of their food, not knowing what to do, Thordylocks was so scared he didn't know what to say. He just sat there speechless until, in the awkward silence, someone chose to speak. And that was Baby Troll. When he finally opened his mouth and said his first words, and they were, "He could have it," which made Mama Troll a very happy Mama Troll now that her son could speak, and made Thordylocks a very happy Thordylocks now that he was not only out of trouble, but also had a new friend. And you can always have a little party when you get a new friend. So Thordylocks was happy, and Baby Troll was happy, and Mama Troll was happy. And when Mama Troll's happy, everybody's happy. So come on, Papa, be happy. There you go. Thank you very much for the smile, Papa. So now, with everybody happy, we can all live, as we tend to do in these types of stories, happily ever after. How many of you guys like that story? Awesome. I'm so glad. I'm so happy. Thordylocks didn't exactly have a lot of consideration for his fellow neighbor. Now, of course, we all know that's not the right thing to do. We don't go into a stranger's house. We all know that. But who was the smartest person in that story? When you think about it, when you look at those ice trolls, they were a family. They were real people. They were just like you and me. And who ended up being the better person in that story? The one that in a lot of stories would be kind of the enemy. But here's this little baby, just learning his first words apparently. He would rather share than fight. That's why that's one of my favorite stories to start off with. Because it's all about being the bigger person, even if you're the smallest person in the room. Anywho, now, if anybody knows me, they know I love drawing and they know I love comics. Now, they also know I love mythology. So taking from what we just did, I thought we would do a little, someone who is under Norse mythology. Under Norse mythology. Did I say mythology before? Who's the best person to do, but related to our story. And for right now, copyright free, wink wink, the Norse god himself, Thor. So let's go ahead and get out some paper, a pencil, and let's go, shall we? So what we're going to do first, toward the middle of the paper, a little ways down, we're going to do a line that's going to go from the left to the right, but it's going to go slope down as we go to the right. And when we start with our pencil, don't forget to go very, very softly. I always tell my younger artists, How do we draw? They always say lightly. So make sure to go very, very lightly. Nice and soft on those brush strokes. And then what you're going to do, once you have that, what I want you to do is what I call half a house. Now, if you make a house, any house has the roof and the walls. And of course, the floor. In this case, we're making half a house, which is just the roof and the wall. So just a crooked line going down to the right or down to the left in some cases, and then straight down. So what we're going to do for that half a house, we're going to kind of tip it a bit. So that roof line will go almost straight down, kind of at an angle, like so, and then bring it to a slope like this in for that wall. Now for this part right here, we're going to do the same thing, but have a house, but it's going to be more of the roof, but that wall line will go straight down like that. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to make some ovals. We're going to start off with one oval, and it's going to be more of an egg-shaped oval. See how they get kind of exponentially smaller? Then you're going to do one more, and it's going to be a little smaller than that one. So we're going to stop right there because now we have his left arm. Now, we're going to do another arm on this side. It's going to start off with the shoulder, but it's going to go down this time. We're going to start off with a backward C shape. It's going to cut right above that crook for the line right there, right where it bends. And you can even very lightly go inside this shape right here, because what we did right here was we made the torso. Now right here, we're going to let that overlap a quarter way down. Do the same thing as we did last time. It's going to go down. But this one's going to go at an angle like this. Now what's he missing? We have arms, no hands yet. So let's go ahead and do some hands. What we're going to do is right about here, we're going to make it a straight line going up, and then it's going to hook up and to the right. It can overlap this a bit. Now what you're going to do right here, we're going to make that same parallel line to that. It's going to go and cut down a little bit into this top shape for the forearm. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to make kind of like we did half a house. We already have the wall. Now let's go ahead and get a roof. If you notice, that roof isn't parallel with this line. So we're going to make another line kind of going not quite straight up, but at an angle, and then another line joining straight, almost like a roof for your house with this one. So we kind of have half, or actually technically 2/3 of a hexagon. You kind of know some math. So now we have his fists are more like a shape for the fist. So what we're going to do is connect this line here. Because now we no longer need that one, but we do still need a line that goes parallel to this one. So very lightly, about midway through, we're going to make a line that goes parallel to that. And then for the thumb, all you need is a rectangle. And it's going to go at an angle. Starting right here, 1, 2, 3, just like that. You don't need to do the line all the way through. It's just going to go part of the way, right there. And then we can give it kind of like a little, if you look at your fist, you kind of have this little tuft right here that kind of puffs out. Go ahead and give it that little hill shape right there. And then again, if you look at your fist, how many fingers do you have? 4 fingers, but you have 3 lines separating. So let's go ahead and do those lines at an angle. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right, and if you want, you can kind of round this out and give it kind of some curves to it, just to give that fist a little bit more of that edge right there. Now, Thor, of course, needs another fist right here. So what we're going to do is another rectangle, but it's going to join up with a line that goes kind of here, off to an angle, and then make that fist that rectangle. So now you have the fist. And if you want, you can give some knuckles to that fist by just giving little hills on each one. And then, of course, Thor needs a head. So what I'm going to do is make sort of a bucket shape on an angle. So it's going to go straight, line right here, then line that angles up and to the right, and then it's going to curve like an arch to meet that next line. Now what I'm going to do is the bottom bucket right here. So it's going to be a line that goes down to the right. The other one on this side goes down to the left and meets in the middle with a nice broad line right there. Now we have his head. So now let's add some lines for his face. So what you do always, whenever you're doing a face, very lightly, make a line that goes straight down that face. Now that face is at an angle, so we're going to make it at an angle. And we're going to do one line, kind of 2/3 of the way down for his eyes. In this case, they'll be parallel to this arch right here. So it's going to be very, very broad, very soft. Now we have his eye line. Now we need a nose line. It's going to be right smack in the middle. And then right smack in the middle. And then another one right underneath there for the mouth. We're very, very light. I'm going to start off with the nose, which is basically just a triangle. Just that. 2/3 of the triangle. You don't need that bottom part. Then right here, keep that line there. Keep that middle line there. Give him a little bit bold on this line to give him a mouth. And then one line underneath. So now we have the nose, mouth, and a bottom lip actually right there. Underneath that bottom lip, which is just that line right here, just a little tiny arch. Little teeny tiny arch. Little baby arch. Oh, adorable. And now we're going to give him his eye lines, which is basically just a check mark here above that one. Actually, upside down check mark to be precise. Right there. And then another one for his eyebrows, going the opposite direction where the left part is raised. Then here, underneath it, you can make those lines a little bit more bold where his eyes would be. And if you want, you can give him just a little bit, just a hint of a dot right there for his pupils. And then just another tiny thinner line underneath each one. We're going to take our eraser, erase all those lines, the lines that we don't need anymore, our guidelines basically. Now we see that he can see, we see that he can smell, we see that he can talk, but Thor cannot hear. So let's go ahead and give him 2 ears. What's that? Just one line on the side, and then it'll join back with the rest of his face. The line that just curves in right there. And now Thor does need a helmet, so I'm going to go ahead and round this top part out. There we go. And he also needs some hair there because right now he's kind of looking a little like Mr. Clean. Don't know who that is? Ask your parents. If they don't know who that is, you might want to get some Mr. Clean in your house. Now, go ahead and make a line that goes down from that helmet to that ear, and then another one to that ear. Now he has kind of sideburns, but not quite. At least you can see a hint of his hair on the sides of his face. So what we're going to do next is give him actual long, flowing, cascading hair that would belong in any Fidel Sassoon commercial in the 1980s. So what we're going to do first is one curved line, like a long S. And then you're going to mimic just that hill right there. So now you have a little flare for the hair right there, and then give him a little hill that goes all the way to his shoulder right here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now, Thor could use some facial hair too. So what I'm going to do is give him an arch right here, starting right where the nose is, then not quite meeting all the way to the side. We're going to do the same thing on this side, and then mimic that line from the point. Then I'm going to mimic this line, this arch right here, and meet back up with it. Then meet up with that hook right there. Then all we have to do is bring this line back up here, this line on the curve up here. Now Thor has a beard. If you want, you can give him some thicker eyebrows by just mimicking the lines that we already made for the eyebrows. And Thor also wouldn't be Thor without his winged helmet. You don't see those in the movies, but you do see them in certain other forms of media. So what we're going to do is make one line like two antennas. 1, 2, curve them up. 1, 2, give them wings. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome, possum. Let's go ahead and erase all the inside of those arms. Right here. So now we have the arms here, arms there. Let's go ahead and give them a belt. Nice little arch here. Even give a little rectangle here for the belt. Then part for where his legs would be. This part you can turn into a pentagon, or actually a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now make the legs, if you can reach all the way to the bottom, just basically 2 lines. And then Thor would not be Thor without his trusty magical hammer, Mjolnir. So let's go ahead and do a line that mimics this line, going parallel, going through it very lightly. 1, you can even skip that part right there. And another one that mimics that line here. Draw a rectangle at an angle. A rectangle at an angle. I'm a poet and I don't know it. And then an X through that rectangle. Then mimic those lines. Then close that off. And now, of course, you have Mjolnir. But if you want to add some special effects, do a little George Lucas to it. I want you to take your pencil in your opposite drawing hand. If you're right-handed, put it in your left hand. If you're left-handed, put it in your right hand. So then I want you to take a line and try and do a kind of a jagged line going down till it almost meets that hammer. Then do the same thing on that side. Try and mimic it, then go all the way around, almost as if you're drawing like sun flares, because that would be the lightning hitting the hammer. And then join it back up with that line that you made there. The reason why I say to do it with your left hand or your opposite drawing hand is because when you do it with your right hand, if I were to just tell you just draw lightning and make it all nice and jagged, it might look more like a flower. That way it has more of a free edge to it. And now you can decorate your Thor to look whatever way you want it to look like. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it. You just did Thor. Congratulations, good job. And give yourselves a pat on the back. Came out pretty good. I like it. Good old Thor. Always a good reminder to go to the gym. At true feet. All right, guys, I have a special treat for you. Now, we know that this is a very crazy time we're all going through. Some of us have a lot of questions about what's going on and the coronavirus and everything. So I thought I would call on one of my friends who would know best about this particular subject, and that is Nurse Lisa. Nurse Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. So before I was a pediatric nurse, I was actually a camp counselor for quite a few years. It was such a fun time. And before that, I was also a camper. So it's good to be here.
Thank you so much. So why don't we get down to it? So that first question I have here is, well, it's actually a statement and a question. The coronavirus causes an illness called COVID-19. What are its symptoms?
So some of the main symptoms of COVID-19 that kids get are sort of similar to a flu or a cold. And so the most common ones are fever and cough. Besides that, some kids will get a sore throat, a runny nose, sort of feeling like their body is aching and sore, feeling nauseous or feeling like they need to throw up. Also stomach ache and diarrhea can be part of it. And some kids will also get sort of dizzy or have headaches, but fever and cough are the most common.
Okay, so what should I do if I was a kid? What would I do if I have any of these symptoms?
if you have any of these symptoms, you should tell your parents or whoever that you live with exactly what it is that you're experiencing so that they can let your doctor know. Your parent or guardian or your doctor might want you to go ahead and get a test for COVID just to see if you have it. But there's a couple different types of tests. There might be sort of like a Q-tip, like a swab that goes in your nose. It can be a little uncomfortable, but it only lasts a second or two. And then there's other ones where they put a swab in your mouth, and that's even easier.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Good to know. Okay. So now another question I have is, how dangerous is the virus to kids?
So luckily, kids have a very low rate of serious illness with COVID-19 compared with adults especially. So if you have other health issues like asthma or diabetes, or if you have any heart problems, some kids are born with heart problems, you have to be a little more careful because you're not more likely to get the virus, but if you do get the virus, it could affect you a little bit more. So if you have any other health conditions, you might need to be a little bit more careful. But in generally, this is something that there's a lot less danger for kids than adults. And even the kids who do get it are usually all better within a week or two. So that's a good thing.
So kids don't, for the most part, they don't need to worry as much or put so much fear into it, basically.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. It's important that everyone does their part, especially in terms of hand washing and keeping distance. But we're doing that to protect ourselves, but we're also doing that to protect the people who are more likely to get the virus, which in the case of COVID is older adults.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or people with other health conditions.
Thank you so much for that. So also I have right here, can the virus affect any other part of your body besides the lungs?
Yeah, so for most kids who do get the virus, which isn't a lot of kids, but for the ones who do get it, it can affect, like I said, other parts of your body will have symptoms. So besides your lungs, you'll have, maybe a sore throat or a cough. So that's sort of your throat, your mouth. It can affect your gastrointestinal system. So you might have a stomach ache, you might feel sick, like throwing up, or you might have some diarrhea. So it can affect your gastrointestinal system. And then also your head, you might feel dizzy, you might get headaches. So it can have those mild symptoms in multiple parts of your body. It's really when the virus gets more severe, which we're lucky in kids, this is pretty rare that this happens. But if the virus does get severe, that's when you'll start to see it affecting other body parts and other organ systems more so than just the lungs. So it can affect your heart, your blood vessels, your kidneys. It can even affect your skin. Something we see with more serious COVID cases in kids is a really red rash. So things like that are more likely to happen if it's severe.
But that's only in the case of if it's severe. So.
Yes, which we're lucky. It's pretty rare for that to happen in children.
Got it. And just for some of the, in case I was worried, if I got a headache, should I think oh my gosh, I've got it. Does that,
Yeah. So again, this is a tricky thing to tell because people get headaches all the time. I think I had a headache yesterday, and the symptoms of COVID, especially in kids, are usually pretty mild. So it might seem like a cold or a flu. But I would say that if you are starting to feel a headache or any of the other symptoms I've talked about, I would not jump to my first thought being, oh my gosh, I have it. I'd probably see if there's any other symptoms that you're having. If that is your one and only symptom, I wouldn't worry about it. If you have 2 or 3 symptoms, that's when you could start telling whoever you live with, your parent, your guardian, hey, I'm starting to feel this way. Describe your symptoms to them so they can let your doctor know. But if you have just one of the things, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Got it. Thank you for that, because I know that's been a huge weight off my mind for that.
Yes.
And I know a lot of kids, if they do get worried, the main thing is kids also don't forget, go talk to your mom or dad. So don't worry about make sure if you're feeling anything, make sure to let your parents know for that.
Of course, especially if it's 2 or more symptoms.
And another one I have here this is an interesting one I've seen a lot. Can pets get it? I've even wondered that too.
Yeah. So in the beginning, when all this COVID stuff started happening, the answer looked more like no, but more and more research is coming out that pets can get it, but it's rare, even rarer than in children getting it. So yes, it is possible. And what the recommendation is if you know that you have COVID, or if someone in your family does, that person should avoid contact with any pets in the household. So maybe you could have one designated person in the house to be taking care of that pet, but not that person who is sick. So just like when a sick person with COVID is isolating themselves from other people, that person should also be isolating themselves from animals and pets.
Awesome. And now I'm going to combine two questions with one.
Yeah.
One way we can stop the spread that we've heard a lot, of course, is wearing a mask. And
Yes.
I wear a mask. I'm sure you wear a mask. The question is, who should wear a mask, and what can we do to stay healthy?
So the CDC recommends that you should wear a mask if you're over the age of 2. Now, that's, for any parents or kids out there who have really young siblings, that a 2-year-old might have a hard time with the mask, so you might need to help them out with it. But especially if you're over the age of 2 and you're able to follow directions, then you might be the perfect person to wear a mask. So you should be wearing a mask if you're in a place that it's hard to keep physical distance from other people. Like if you're at a doctor's office or if you're at the grocery store, those are types of places where, there's people all around you and it can be hard to stay at least 6 feet away. So that's the time when you need to be wearing the mask. It's okay to be outside without a mask as long as you are at least 6 feet away from other people who you don't live with. So if maybe you're going for a walk around the neighborhood with your mom or your dad or your sibling, that's okay because you live in the house with them. You're not going to wear a mask in the house with them, so you don't need to wear one outside with them as long as you're not getting within 6 feet of other people. So that's sort of the rule of thumb. And then also just keep in mind, wearing a mask can definitely help slow the spread of disease, but it's important that we wear it right. So the mask should cover both your nose and your mouth. There's a lot of people out there who I see wearing the mask under their nose.
Yeah, and the ninja look. Yeah.
It's a little silly because if you're wearing the mask under your nose, then the mask isn't really protecting you. So make sure it's covering both. Make sure that it's the right size for you. If you're really little and you're wearing a mask for an adult, it might be too big for you. And then all the germs are going to be able to sort of fly underneath it. So it needs to fit you, a little bit tightly.
So a bandana won't do the trick. It's just if it's still, especially if it's just drooping over.
If it's just drooping over, something is better than nothing, but it's better to have something that is form-fitting on your face than something that is dangling, for sure. So that's an important thing. And then the other thing to keep in mind, besides it covering your mouth and your nose, is 1, having it fit properly is 2, and then 3 is you have to make sure not to touch it, because if we're touching our masks all the time, that means we're taking germs that are on our hands and putting them right next to our mouth. And that's actually a really good way to get a virus of any kind, this virus or any other virus like the cold or the flu. So in general, we don't want to be touching our faces whether or not we have a mask on. So even if you have a mask on, if you're touching it all the time, you're not going to be very protected because you're putting those germs right next to your mouth and your nose. And that's how germs like to enter our body. So that's sort of the general rules with mask wearing.
Oh my gosh. You've given us so much information. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Good.
Is there anything else that we can, any last thoughts?
Well, as important as wearing a mask is, there is probably nothing you can do that's as important as washing your hands. So if there's one takeaway from the video, it's wash those hands. Soap and water is best. You want to lather like this, like get lots of friction between all your.
I can't just do like a little, squirt over and just be like, all right, exactly. I'm done, got it, right?
Yeah. You want to get it all up in there. So lots of friction on those fingers. The right amount of time is like sing the happy birthday song in your head. That's the right amount of time to wash your hands. And I'll also make sure to dry your hands afterwards, because when your hands are wet and then you touch other things, it can be really easy for germs to stick to that liquid on your hands. So make sure your hands are dry after you wash them. And when you're touching things in public, like an elevator button, or if you're going to cross the sidewalk and you hit the little sidewalk button, try to use your elbow whenever you can. Using your elbow is a great substitute for your hands, because we don't usually put our elbows on our faces. That's pretty hard. I don't know if you can do that. I can't.
Let me see. No, I can't. I used to be double jointed. I still don't think I can do it. So
yeah,
thank you so very much,
course,
Nurse Lisa.
Of course, my pleasure. And also don't forget, if you're gonna sneeze, don't sneeze into your hands. Sneeze into that elbow. Use your elbow.
Almost like a dab.
Keeps those germs away from your face.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nurse Lisa.
Of course, my pleasure.
Well, guys, hope you had a great time. I really enjoyed doing this. So be good, be kind, be generous, be gentle, be awkward, be weird, and be yourselves. And I hope to see you next time.